Welcome back, everyone, to another OkestWeekly recap where we cover all things handheld PC gaming. All news or no news, we'll cover every brand. And don't forget, if you enjoy this video, do the OKS thing and boop that like button. And if you're enjoying the channel, subscribe below. Alright, let's jump into it. We'll kick things off with some quick news. So there's actually a video that came out just recently where someone put Linux on their Nintendo Switch and had it running God of War, Grand Theft Auto 5, Titanfall 2, and even some emulation. The video takes you through the entire process and it is very involved, but it's pretty cool to see. I mean, could you ever imagine Grand Theft Auto 5 or God of War running on the Switch? Now, granted, of course, the performance was pretty terrible on those two, but the fact that it even boots is pretty crazy. Both of them seem to be running at about 7 FPS, which is obviously unplayable, but I don't think that's the point. It's just cool that they actually got it running. One that was a bit of a surprise though is Titanfall 2. They seem to have it running between 15 to 20 FPS, and at sometimes it was even running at 30. So check out that video if you're curious about this. It was definitely an interesting watch. They also put Android on the Switch, which I think is a little bit more realistic, and we're able to emulate a few systems. I'll drop a link to that video in the video description. Definitely check it out. It's pretty cool. Next up is the Nuc Deck. So he's got it ready now where he's able to play games and he's got the controllers mostly working. For those just tuning in now that didn't hear about this when I talked about it previously, the Nuc Deck is a DIY handheld that CNC Dan has been making. He's done a few of these before and has been working on improving them each time. You'll notice that I'm using some of his video here. I did get permission to do so, but if you're interested in this cool project, check out his full video. He's got a series as well, so you can check out video 1 to 4 and see the full process of how he got it to this point. I'll show you a few brief clips of some of the gameplay. I'm not sure which game this one is. It's a racing game. It looks like it's a little bit older, and he was getting somewhere between 70 to 120 FPS. He also had Portal running. It seemed to be running pretty smoothly on here. I'll be keeping it brief, so check his video if you want the full footage. And he also tested out some emulation, so he has Mario Kart running on here. It seems to be running at full speed. And also Ratchet and Clank. I believe it's the second one for PS2. Seeing the results is cool, but honestly the coolest part is actually seeing what he's doing. So he's going fully in depth here explaining what he's done, and it's honestly cool just seeing what goes into making a device like this. So I'll link his video in the description. Definitely check it out, and he's also got a Discord server that you can check out if you're interested in following this project a little bit closer. And our last bit of quick news is the TJD T101 has an update. It seems that they're going to be looking at the device's design and the color scheme. I guess they've been taking the feedback that people have been leaving about the colors and the design, that people haven't really liked it. They've talked about it looking like a toy, and I think they're going to be planning to do something where they change it up a little bit. We also don't know the price yet or the full launch window, but it's something that they say will be coming soon. So of course I'll keep you guys up to speed as I learn more about it. So now that we've got the quick news covered, let's move on to the ROG Ally. There isn't a whole lot of news for the ROG Ally this week. It was pretty quiet. There's no updates for the SD card or any other fixes that have come out. So what I wanted to cover today instead is a couple of mods that the community's been working on. I'll give you some updates on where those are at. As well, I'll show you some cool 3D printed handles you can get for your Ally that makes it much more comfortable to hold. Let's start things off with an update on the battery mod that I talked about a few weeks ago. So in case you weren't tuned in back then, we had somebody that put a 90 watt-hour battery into their Ally. They had taken it from a laptop and just folded it over to modify it to fit. The problem is that it was too thick for the case, so they were looking at modifying the back shell so that it would be able to fit. One of the early solutions they came up with was a 3D printed attachment that you'd put on the back of your shell and you'd secure it down with some adhesive. And you would need to cut a hole in your back shell so that you could feed the wire through. They've continued to work on it and modify it to make it better each time, so currently this is what it looks like. And they've also been able to model the back shell so that you could just print out your own and then modify that instead of your stock one. I believe that one's still being tested, so it's not completely ready yet. If you're curious about the performance of this battery mod, I'll let you know what they discovered. So they found that it was getting 2 hours plus on turbo mode, 4 hours plus on performance mode, 6 hours plus on silent, and 8+ hours on a 7 watt custom TDP. So certainly an improvement over the stock battery, which is only a 40 watt hour battery. There's a guide for this mod available on ALLYMods.com, and you can look up the 90 watt hour battery upgrade page. And I may order a second back shell, either the 3D printed one or one from that spare parts website, and try this mod myself. And if it goes well, I'll make it into a video for your entertainment or information if you plan to do it yourself. So that's not the only mod that's being worked on. There's actually somebody that's looking to upgrade their RAM to 32 gigabytes. So they had actually started to work on it and remove the RAM from their board, but then they discovered that the RAM that they were sent was actually the incorrect one. So they've ordered a new one and are going to be testing it when it comes in. So this one's really interesting to follow. I'm curious to see if they're going to have any improved performance with the increased RAM, but we're going to have to wait till they're done to see how it turned out. I'll keep you guys up to speed on that one as I'm watching it closely. So moving on from the pretty involved and intense mods, let's go to something that everyone can do. So I saw these 3D printed grips pop up. I think it was on the Facebook group. So I decided to check it out on the Etsy store to see what it was about. I have some other handhelds that have a little bit thicker handles, and I've always found those to be the most comfortable. Not that the Ally grips are bad, but I figured they could be improved a little bit. So I got in touch with the product creator and he sent these over for me to check out and to show you guys. As you can see, they go together pretty easy. They actually slide on and then click together. So as you can see, it makes the grips quite a bit larger and it gets rid of that sharp edge that I don't really like on the corner of the Ally. But probably what I like the most is that it gives you somewhere to rest your pinky and your ring finger. So I find that I'm using my middle fingers to touch the buttons as they line up perfectly, but then I have somewhere to grip onto with my ring finger and my pinky, which normally just lay against the back shell. So if you're interested in this one, I'll leave a link in the video description for the Etsy store. And as you can see here, there's a number of color options and it only costs $19.99 USD. So that's all I've got for the Ally this week. So let's move on to the Steam Deck. I don't have much for the Steam Deck this week, but I will go over 2 beta client updates as well as a cool 3D printed accessory. Let's start things off with the beta client updates. There was one on the 26th and another one on the 28th, so let's start with the 26th. So this update is pretty simple. There was just 3 updates, one to general, one to desktop mode, and one to the Steam input. So for general, it fixed a notification for achievements that weren't firing when offline. For desktop mode, it fixed the main client window, taking focus from other Steam windows when navigation menus are hovered. And lastly, the Steam input fixed some cases where the navigation changes from the previous beta would result in a blank page in the configurator. For the second beta client update on the 28th, it's also pretty straightforward. For the general, we have improved library performance for users with large number of collections. And for the desktop mode, they fixed a few UI issues where it was showing incorrect information in the wallet, in the notifying about changes to your games, as well as showing the wrong image when switching between small mode and normal mode. And that's it for the beta client updates, not too many this week. One thing that I wanted to show you guys today is these cool 3D printed grips you can get for your Steam Deck. You can get them textured or you can also get them smooth, and they come in 2 different sizes. In a previous weekly, I talked about covering creations from both the handheld community as well as the 3D printing community. So these grips were created by Rob.3D Shop. He has an Etsy store where you can buy these and other accessories for the Steam Deck and a few other handhelds. One thing to note is if you're putting them on your Steam Deck and you have a skin, just be careful because there's teeth that hook into the speaker grill. So just make sure that you flex it a little bit away while you slide it on so you don't scratch up your skin. So first I'll show you the large grip. It's actually my favorite of the bunch. I'm just putting it on one side so you can see what it looks like, and then I'm going to put another one on the other side so you can compare the two. On the second side, I put the small smooth one. It's the same thickness, but it's just not as wide and doesn't go quite as high up, so you don't get as much of a rounded grip. Personally, I like the large one. I think it looks better, and I also think it feels better in the hand. So if you're looking to pick one of these up, you can visit his Etsy store. It's $21.99, and there's numerous colors available. I'll leave a link in the video description if you want to pick this one up. And that's all I've got for the Steam Deck. Let's move on to AOKZOE. I don't have a ton to cover for AOKZOE, but I do have a couple things. So the first one is that AMD released new drivers for the 7840U, and right now I don't recommend installing them on your A1 Pro. It seems that there's a bit of an issue that has been causing performance issues for those that have tried it. But if you do end up trying it or have already tried it, let me know in the comments what your experience was like. I've heard from a few people that they've had challenges across a few different devices, so let me know how it went for you and we'll keep track of when an update comes out that hopefully fixes the issue. So far what I've heard is it may be an issue with the auto detect where it's actually installing the wrong drivers, so that could be why it's having some performance issues, but I can't say for certain as I don't have a 7840U yet. Second thing to cover is for the A2, we don't have any updates. Hopefully we'll get something next month, but I really don't know when we're going to hear more or when it's going to be launching. One last thing is that the refurbished A1s are back on sale. You can get the 5, 12, 16GB model for $5.99. So if you want to get this one, it's the one with the 6800U. You can find this at the AOKZOE web store. I'll leave a link in the video description. Okay, so that's going to do it for my AOKZOE updates. Let's head on over to Onexplayer. For Onexplayer this week, it was a little bit quieter, but I do have a couple things to cover. First up, that thing that I talked about last week, the accessories bundle that you could buy for $9.90 that would help determine the price of the Onexfly. Well, it seems to be going pretty well. As of the time we're recording, there's only 87 left before they reach their goal of 2,000, which means that very likely the starting price is going to be $739. So that's great news because that puts the price very close to the ROG Ally. Now, of course, with this device, it is running the 7840U and not the Z1 Extreme, but you also get all the additional I/O and a few other features that you don't get on the Ally, which is kind of nice. Of course, you don't get the same convenience of being able to just walk into the store and purchase, but I think for what you get here with the extra I/O and a few extra features. Also, if you compare it with some of the competitors' price points for their 7840U devices, this is actually a really good deal. So we still don't know when the campaign starts, but I have a feeling it's just around the corner because there's only 3 days remaining for that accessories campaign that they started, which very likely means that the campaign is coming up very shortly. So another bit of news is that the Onexplayer 2 Pro, and I'm not talking about the EVA edition, I'm talking about the standard edition, seems to be just around the corner. I believe they're going to be launching it sometime in August. Now, I don't have my source for this. I do remember seeing it, and I did check with some others, and they saw it as well, so I'm not crazy, at least not for this. But until we get official word, just consider it a rumor and we'll see what turns out. I have a feeling that it's going to be happening though. And that's going to do it for Onexplayer, so let's move on to AYN. We have a few things to cover for AYN this week. The first is that the Loki and Loki Max should have all orders shipped out by the end of the month. Some good news for the Linux users out there is that Chimera support may be coming to the Loki Max soon, as AYN is going to be sending one to the developer very shortly. So I'm sure with just a little bit of time they should get it running and be able to optimize it. One update for those that already have their devices, there was supposed to be a software update for the Loki software, but it hasn't come out yet. It seems that they're a little bit delayed as they're still trying to work on solving a few issues. So stay tuned to their server for more information on when that's going to be available. They are planning an over-the-air update soon. Moving on to the Loki Zero, it seems that they're going to be starting to ship in mid-August, but they do expect that most of the orders are going to come after August 20th. Originally, they had planned to ship about a month after the Loki Max, so it seems like they're a little bit behind schedule. And one last bit of news for AYN is that they just announced that they're going to be making the Odin 2. They haven't released any more information on when it's going to be coming out or any of the specs, but they did leave a link to an Indiegogo where you can sign up your email for more information. So if you're interested in checking that one out, I'll leave a link in the video description and you can sign up for some info. And that's going to do it for my AYN updates. Let's move on to AYANEO. For AYANEO this week, there's a few things to cover today. We have a few things confirmed for the AYANEO Kun. It's things that we had heard before, but now we have confirmation. So for the screen, it's going to be a 16:10 60Hz display, which apparently will be capable of over 500 nits of brightness. We've also got confirmation that the weight will in fact be over 900 grams, and the memory will be at 6400 megatransfers per second unless AMD is able to solve a compatibility issue that they're reporting. Moving over to the AYANEO Air 1S, there's plenty of room still for the early bird prices, so if you were looking to get one, you still have some time. It seems that the early bird prices are available across the board still. And some good news is that they've already started to ship them. Speaking of AYANEO Air, we also have the AYANEO Pocket Air campaign that's going to be going live soon. They've now set up a page where you can sign up for email information. I've covered the specs previously, but here's a list of some of the most important specs. Probably the biggest highlight though is the OLED display, and the device weight being only 380 grams. So if you're interested in this one, check out the Indiegogo page and sign up for email updates so you can get the up-to-date information as quick as possible. And the last update I have for AYANEO is that ISpace 2 is now available to download for a beta test. I haven't had the opportunity to test it out yet, but just keep in mind that it is a beta, so it may be buggy. If you decide to test it, you can leave feedback in the ISpace channel in AYANEO's Discord server. That's also where you can find the download link. So that's going to do it for AYANEO. Let's move on to GPD. I have a few brief things to cover for GPD this week. The first is that the WinMax 2, I talked about it shipping out last week. Well, apparently people are already receiving it, as I've seen a bunch of people posting on the subreddit that they've already received their devices. For those that are receiving their devices, I do recommend skipping the latest AMD update. I talked about it in the AOKZOE section of the video, but I know some people skip ahead. So I've left a link in the video description for this article that I'm showing on screen where you can read a little bit more about it. But it seems that performance has been affected with this new update, so you should skip it for now. Some other news is that the Win 4 refresh campaign is still ongoing and you can still get the early bird prices. Last week I showed that there was a certain amount remaining. I don't believe that that's actually the case. I think they just have to have a certain amount of stock shown on there just to have the Indiegogo work properly, because I've seen the numbers now and they're higher than they were last week. So check that one out if you're in the market for a 7840U Win 4. If you're looking for a Win 4 6800, I do have a new coupon for you guys, so it brings the price down to $6.99 for the 1TB model. I'll drop that in the video description with a link and a coupon code. And some quick news for the Wini Mini is we are expecting that we should know the price pretty soon. We just haven't had anything released yet, and that should be coming sometime after the G1 campaign, which is ongoing right now, so hopefully soon we'll hear more information. We did, however, learn a couple things: that the device weighs 520 grams and it has a 44 watt-hour battery. One more bonus thing that I wanted to show you today is this 3D printed shell that I had got from Dino Meets Donuts. He has an Etsy store and had printed this and sent it to me. So this is that shell that I got that looks kind of green on one side, blue on another. And I wanted to show you one other accessory that he had sent at that time that I didn't get a chance to show last time. So these are some joystick protectors that are magnetic, so you just wrap it around there and just click it together, and because it's magnetic you could just easily put it on and easily take it off. So if you're traveling and need something to protect your joysticks, these are probably a good option for you. I'll leave a link for his Etsy store page. Definitely check it out if you have a handheld and are looking for some accessories. And that'll wrap it up for GPD this week. I just have a really brief update for Boosteroid this week. We have 3 new games that have entered the service. We have Remnant 2, BattleBit Remastered, as well as Aliens Dark Descent. And the second bit of news is that if you're playing through the desktop client, it's going to be getting an update very soon to increase compatibility. And that's going to do it for my Boosteroid updates, and that's also going to do it for this weekly video. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.